were expected to speak to Dr Mamphela Ramphele, who is the chairperson of the Archbishop Desmond Tutu IP Trust, because there was a considered statement that was released by the Archbishop Tutu IP Trust yesterday, in that the trust wants the Department of Home Affairs to stop using the Tutu name at the corruption-tainted Refugee Centre. It's the Marabastad Refugee Centre. It's based in Pretoria. I've been there reporting once or twice, and was renamed the Desmond Tutu Refugee Reception Centre in 2016. Archbishop Tutu allowed his name to be used based on the Department of Home Affairs' commitment to high standards and the humane treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. But since then, nothing but bad news has emanated from the Tutu Refugee Centre, and now the Desmond Tutu IP Trust says, please remove our name. We do not want Desmond Tutu's name to be associated with a facility that has largely had negative news that has emanated, particularly when it comes to cases of corruption and the treatment of refugees and asylum seekers. We're joined now by Dr Mamphela Ramphele, who's the chairperson of the Archbishop Tutu IP Trust. This decision, I'm sure, doesn't come lightly. Dr Ramphele, good morning.
Good morning. No, because we are dealing here with a very precious name, trademarks, IP, a real icon of humanity.
I've had the sinking feeling for the last while, and of course we honor our stalwarts and our icons, and we offer their name to places where they have been involved in, or parts of our country. But I have the sinking feeling that we have a generation growing up in South Africa who don't know the names, who don't know the icons or behind the names of certain places, municipalities, centres who have the honour of these people's names. Like, for example, the Dr Beyers Nadir municipality, or the Chris Hani district municipality. I have a generation of young people who grow up in these communities around these centres, who don't know about the important role that these people have played in South African history. They only know of the very, very bad state in which they live in. Like, for example, the Chris Hani district municipality in the Eastern Cape, which is denoted and known as probably one of the worst run districts in the country. What does it say about a current state of government who does very little in honouring the names bestowed and loaned by the families of these stalwarts to these centres that absolutely just run into decay? So, which means you have this generation who doesn't know about the work of Chris Hani, doesn't know about the work of Dr Beyers Nadir, who doesn't know about the work of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. They just know the names are dogged and connected with corruption and mismanagement, Doctor.
The blame for that state of affairs you are talking about, the lack of knowledge by the younger generations about these icons, and the state in which young people grow up, humiliating poverty that strips them of any sense of dignity and self-respect. That is a reflection of the failures of successive ANC governments since the dawn of democracy. There has not been any dedication to true transformation of the socioeconomic status of people who had been marginalized in the colonial era and the apartheid era. And the other reflection of the state of affairs is the fact that the education system we have in South Africa is the most demeaning and inspiring kind of education. It's worse in many ways than the education I got, because we had teachers who would go outside of the curriculum and say, but you need to know this and that and that. But today, we have history that's taught to our children, which leaves them not knowing who's Archbishop Tutu, who's Chris Hani, who is Vigo, who is Mapetla Mohapi. But all of that is so easy to teach now with the use and the help of technology. Second, we have a government that actively refused to teach civic education during the Thabo Mbeki era. Professor Kada Asmar was then the Minister of Education, and of course he was a constitutional lawyer. He understood the importance of enabling citizens to understand what does it mean to be a citizen, what are your rights, what are your responsibilities, how do you hold those whom you elect accountable. That sort of, those capabilities of citizens were denied actively by the ANC in 2000, I think it was 2002 when this was presented to Mbeki's cabinet. And so we are reaping the fruits of a deliberate entrenchment of party rule rather than a constitutional democracy that puts the constitution at the center, the citizen as the sovereign at the center, and a government that is accountable to the people of South Africa. Now we have people in government, including President Ramaphosa, who can lie and tell South Africans that government services are ANC services, that the money that people get in grants are the product of the ANC government, rather than that they have gone through a process where the state, which consists of the government and the other institutions and parliament, has made this decision. And of course, to boast of having more than 20 million people on grants, it's really like a blind person boasting about having a stick rather than eyes. We have paralyzed citizens in this country to be dependent on a government which is thoroughly corrupt, which lacks the moral authority to govern.
Dr. Ramphele, would you call on other families of stalwarts and historical figures to remove or call for the removal of their families' names from troubled institutions or municipalities, like, for example, Francis Bach District Municipality, the Solplaatje Municipality, which has seen its own form of dysfunction in the Northern Cape, the Beyers-Naudé, the Chris Hani District in the Eastern Cape? Would there be a call from you for families of these historical figures and stalwarts to say, please allow us to remove our names up until there is a level of acceptable governance in these particular parts of the country, Doctor?
It is not my role to call on other families to do what we are doing. We have a mandate given to us by the Arch to honor and protect and safeguard his legacy. I hope that the example we are setting will be followed by those who care about the icons that are connected to their families or to the trust that they are mandated to look after. I don't think it helps to pin your hopes on one voice. What we need is a South Africa where people rise to their responsibilities and use the power of their voices, the power of their votes, to remove those who are failing them, to remove those who pretend to be the people's leaders when in fact all they care about are their positions and the resources that they are siphoning out of the state, which belongs to us.
Dr Mamphela Ramphele, who is the chairperson of the Archbishop Tutu IP Trust, wants the late Arch's name removed from the Marabastad Refugee Centre. It's currently known as the Desmond Tutu Refugee Centre, but been dogged by claims of corruption. Currently, the site and the scene of a special investigative unit investigation into fraud and corruption. They're saying we don't want the Arch's name attached to any of that. And the question is, should families whose loved ones are historical anti-apartheid stalwarts connected to dysfunctional municipalities, metros, should they ask for their names to be removed until there is a level of better governance there?